College is supposed to be a pathway, a system that takes ambition, refines it through education, and releases it into the world as success. But somewhere along the way, that ideal got a price tag. And then the price tag started climbing, fast. Today, the average American college student graduates with over $37,000 in debt. For many, it's much higher. Tuition alone can reach six figures. Add rent, food, books, health insurance, transportation. And what you have isn't just a cost. It's a crisis. A slow, quiet, financial implosion waiting to happen. And for tens of thousands of college-aged women across the United States, there's only one escape hatch left open. But it doesn't involve scholarships, work study, or part-time jobs. It involves a contract without paper, a transaction wrapped in affection, and a new kind of education. They call it being a sugar baby. The term is soft, polished, marketed to sound playful, even luxurious. But make no mistake, it's a system. One that exchanges youth and presence for financial support. And nowhere is this system growing faster than on American college campuses. Behind dorm room doors and under the radar of student loan offices, a growing number of young women, many of them under the age of 22, are entering relationships with wealthy, older men in exchange for monthly allowances, luxury gifts, tuition payments, and rent. These aren't emotional partnerships. They're structured arrangements with unwritten rules and silent terms. Presence, availability, and discretion. For cash, stability, and access. It's easy to dismiss this as personal choice, and some do. But choice looks different when you're 19 years old, staring down $100,000 in future debt, with parents who can't co-sign another loan and a scholarship that barely covers your books. When tuition is predatory, survival begins to look like submission. Now, consider this. Many of these sugar relationships are initiated not through private circles, but through websites, public, organized platforms that specifically target college students. The most well-known among them, Seeking.com, once openly advertised on college campuses with slogans like "Upgrade your lifestyle," accompanied by images of girls in graduation robes holding champagne. They even published lists of top sugar baby schools in America, boasting the number of registered students per university. Some of the most elite institutions, New York University, University of Texas, Arizona State, ranked at the top. Why would a website that facilitates transactional relationships between young women and rich men directly target universities? The answer is clear. It works. The business model depends on financial vulnerability, paired with youthful social capital. In other words, broke college students who still fit society's narrow standard of desirable femininity. It's not just about looks. It's about timing. A 22-year-old woman carrying $60,000 in debt, but desperate to keep her GPA, isn't just susceptible. She's cornered. And the system knows it. But here's the real question. Why are universities so quiet about it? When these platforms began showing up in campus forums, local newspapers, even in students' private group chats, universities made no public statements, no investigations, no policy changes, no warnings. Not one major American university has formally condemned sugar dating platforms targeting their students. Not one has proposed institutional support programs specifically aimed at women being groomed into financial dependency by anonymous online sponsors. And that silence, it speaks volumes. Because the truth is, schools benefit from this too. Tuition gets paid, on time. Rent checks clear. Students don't drop out. The machine keeps running no matter who's behind the curtain. Whether it's a parent, a federal loan, or a man known only by his luxury watch and monthly transfer, the university still gets its cut. This is where things begin to blur. What do you call it when a system knowingly prices education at a level that forces students into desperation? but offers no alternative relief? What do you call it when wealthy men exploit that desperation in exchange for quiet companionship? And what do you call it when universities remain silent while both transactions unfold under their roof? You call it a network, unspoken, uncoordinated, but functionally aligned. The sugar baby phenomenon isn't just a fringe lifestyle anymore. It's become, in some cases, an unofficial solution to an economic trap, one that no one wants to talk about because it's far too convenient for everyone involved. She gets tuition covered. He gets discretion. The school gets paid. No one files a report. But don't be fooled. This isn't empowerment. It's adaptation. The deeper you look, the more you realize. This didn't just happen. It was allowed. Then it was normalized. Then it was rebranded as choice. Because if it's a choice, there's no one to blame. Not the platforms. Not the men. Not the universities. Not the system that made it all seem necessary. This is not about sugar. And it's certainly not sweet. It's about survival, shaped by silence and marketed as luxury. And the next time you see a college girl in designer heels leaving a building you can't quite afford to enter, don't ask what she's doing. Ask what she's trying to escape. When a system grows big enough to have its own infrastructure, its own language, and its own set of unspoken rules, it's no longer just a trend. It's an economy. And the sugar baby phenomenon has crossed that threshold long ago. In the last decade, entire platforms have been built, not just websites, but full-blown ecosystems, for connecting young women, mostly college-aged, with men offering financial support. But support isn't really the word. Sponsorship isn't either. Strip away the branding and what you're left with is this: a marketplace. One where intimacy, access, and appearance are the commodities, and desperation is the entry fee. Take Seeking.com as the clearest example. It boasts millions of users worldwide, with specific marketing campaigns aimed at students. It positions itself not as a dating app, but as a mutually beneficial arrangement platform. On its homepage, you'll see smiling women beside yachts, champagne, graduation gowns. Its aspiration sold as intimacy. But scroll deeper, and you'll find pricing tiers, upgrade packages, and user rankings, because at the end of the day, this is a business. And like any business, it runs on profit margins, churn rates, and conversion funnels. And make no mistake, college girls are the golden demographic, young enough to fit the fantasy, poor enough to need the money, and still new enough to the system to be persuaded that this is just smart survival. But what's more disturbing than the platforms themselves are the structures around them. Behind these apps are companies with investment arms, marketing teams, and legal departments. In 2019, Seeking Arrangement, as it was formerly known, announced partnerships with financial advisors to help sugar babies manage their wealth. Let that sink in. They weren't just facilitating the exchange, they were institutionalizing it. There are blogs with tips for securing long-term arrangements, Reddit threads rating different types of benefactors, and even coaching services teaching students how to optimize their profiles. This isn't informal anymore. It's formalized. And every layer, every coach, every recruiter, every hosting algorithm is making money off a dynamic that's one wrong breath away from coercion. Now, consider this. Some of the universities with the highest sugar baby sign-up rates are also the ones with the lowest financial aid offerings. Coincidence or structural incentive? One internal student affairs report from a Northeastern university flagged a pattern of repeat users accessing high-value alumni networking events through dates, not student credentials. These weren't just social anomalies. These were informal recruiting channels for students to be seen, evaluated, and in some cases, approached. No rules were broken, but lines were certainly crossed. And when the issue was raised to the university's ethics board, it was dismissed as out-of-scope student behavior. because technically, no one had done anything wrong. And that's the loophole everyone relies on. Here's how it works. The platforms say they don't sell sex. They only connect consenting adults. The girls say they're just accepting help. They're not being forced. The men say they're offering mentorship, guidance, generosity. And the universities say it's none of their business until a scandal breaks. And so the economy thrives, because every actor in the system has plausible deniability. And meanwhile, the churn continues. 19-year-olds registering for arrangements, paying $20 to $50 a month in platform fees, being coached to maximize ROI on their time, and competing in a space that blurs the line between survival and selling out. And let's not forget who's on the other end: the benefactors, the daddies. They're not always the cigar-smoking billionaires you imagine. Many are mid-level executives, startup investors, or men who've built enough wealth to afford discretion. But here's what they all have in common: access. They know where to find girls too broke to say no. And they know the system won't stop them. In fact, in many cases, it's designed to funnel exactly that vulnerability to their doorstep. This isn't just about money. It's about control. And here's the twist. As the economy grows, it begins to justify itself. News outlets start framing sugar dating as empowering. Influencers post about their luxury lifestyle hacks. And even mainstream podcasts talk about it as a legitimate career detour. It becomes normalized, even glamorized, until no one remembers how insane it is that we allowed a generation of young women to adapt to predatory economics instead of fixing the cost of education. This is the sugar baby economy, not an underground movement, not a rebellious lifestyle, but a fully monetized system, built on the premise that there are more rich men than there are scholarships, and that as long as the bills keep getting paid, no one will ask where the money comes from. So who's really using whom? Is the girl using the man for tuition? Or is the man using the system to gain access to her? Is the platform connecting people or harvesting them? Are universities just passive observers or quiet partners? Because if everyone's getting paid, and no one's stopping it, maybe the question isn't about morality anymore. Maybe it's just about profit. Universities market themselves as sanctuaries of knowledge, places of progress, of ethics. But peel back the glossy brochures and photo ops, and you'll find institutions that behave less like temples of learning, and more like businesses guarding a revenue stream. Let's be honest. Higher education in the U.S. isn't education first. It's economy first. Enrollment is currency. Tuition is blood flow. And student image. That's brand management. So what happens when thousands of female students begin turning to sponsorship as a survival tool? What happens when a growing percentage of your student body funds their degrees through arrangements no one wants to define? You might think schools would react, investigate, speak out, protect. But they don't. Because sugar baby culture, for all its controversy, keeps the wheels turning. Tuition gets paid. Housing bills don't bounce. Dropout rates stay manageable. And schools avoid having to confront the deeper problem: that the cost of attending is quietly pushing students into a market that trades dignity for degrees. Universities know. They've seen the headlines. Top 10 sugar baby campuses. Students turning to older men to afford tuition. Seeking.com even ran targeted ad campaigns using school names. Not one lawsuit, not one public statement. The silence isn't accidental, it's strategic. Because to speak up would be to admit complicity. To acknowledge that their pricing model helps feed the very economy now preying on their students. It's easier to say nothing. Let the platforms take the heat. Let the girls carry the blame. The school gets paid either way. And let's talk infrastructure. Many universities have expanded student housing far beyond demand. Why? Because rent is a captive market. Some girls living in luxury apartments near campus aren't paying for them alone. Some are listed as full-time students, but attend class once a week. Some work no jobs, but wear designer. Professors notice, administrators notice, but no one intervenes, because nothing illegal has technically happened. It's not just about individual cases. It's about a larger shift. The university as silent facilitator. Consider this. Some schools promote mentorship events or alumni networking mixers that quietly allow access to high-income donors and former graduates with influence. These events are often invitation-only, with students selected based on appearance, major, or social connections. What begins as a networking opportunity can evolve into something else entirely. Unofficial channels for unspoken arrangements. Faculty don't ask. Admissions doesn't document. And when confronted, schools respond with phrases like, personal decisions outside academic oversight. In other words, we know, but we're not responsible. Behind closed doors, some administrators do worry, but most stay quiet, because they understand a brutal truth. If a student finds a way to cover $60,000 in annual expenses without taking out loans or failing classes, then technically they're succeeding, even if it costs them more than money. And what about Title IX? What about student safety policies? What about institutional ethics? All conveniently bypassed by calling these relationships private matters. Universities won't regulate what happens off campus, even if the platforms that enable it are targeting their campus directly. It's a firewall of plausible distance, and it protects everyone but the student. And while this happens, promotional videos roll on, smiling faces, success stories, proud parents at graduation. No one sees the hidden ledger. No one sees the private transactions behind the public degrees. So ask yourself, if universities are aware, if they see the patterns, hear the whispers, read the data, and still do nothing, are they not participating? Maybe not openly, but by doing nothing, they're making a choice. Silence is strategy. Denial is defense. Because if they admitted the truth, that they're pricing students into desperation and looking away as others monetize that desperation, it would force a reckoning no one wants to face. And so the show continues. Degrees are earned, reputations protected. But somewhere in that equation, the line between education and transaction disappears. And the cost isn't just financial anymore. There's a rule in systems analysis. Follow the benefit. Not the action. Not the intention. The benefit. Because where the advantage collects, so does the truth. So if college-aged women are entering sugar relationships at record rates and no one is stopping them, who benefits? The answer isn't simple, because this system doesn't have one central architect. It has collaborators, each playing their role, each profiting just enough to look the other way. Start with the platforms. Seeking.com. What's your price? Sugar Daddy Meet. These aren't fringe websites. They're multi-million-dollar companies with marketing departments, data analysts, and legal teams trained to walk the tightrope between escort law and First Amendment protections. Their business model thrives on ambiguity, relationships that are mutually beneficial but never defined. That way, when criticism arises, they can point to choice. And when the money flows, they can count it tax-free. They profit from scale. Thousands of students registering, monthly subscription fees, data monetization, and maybe more. Because behind every user profile is a behavioral map. How long a person searches, what filters they apply, how quickly they respond to offers. This data has value beyond dating. It becomes psychology. It becomes predictive modeling. And in the wrong hands, it becomes leverage. Then come the men. The benefactors, often older, often connected. Many are not anonymous. They're lawyers, CEOs, lobbyists, even university donors. They know the rules, they know the loopholes, and they know exactly where to look. These men don't exploit the system. They expect it to protect them. They benefit from access, not just to companionship, but to an entire generation priced out of choice. For them, it's not just a luxury, it's insulation. A relationship dynamic where they hold all the cards, financial, social, and emotional. And in exchange, they receive presence, compliance, and most of all, silence. But perhaps the most quietly complicit actor is the university itself. Because as long as tuition is paid and enrollment holds steady, the model sustains. Administrators won't risk controversy. Departments won't jeopardize funding. Ethics boards won't touch personal matters. And meanwhile, the sugar economy grows under their watch. Students surviving not through merit or support, but through arrangements no one wants to name. And here's where it gets darker. Because in allowing this structure to exist, a precedent is being set. One that says, we don't care how you pay as long as you do. One that tells women, your body is your credit score, your presence, your compliance, your desirability. They're all collateral. And if you can turn that into rent, into tuition, into stability, then good for you. The system won't stop you. It'll smile, hand you a degree, and tell your parents you made it. What gets lost in this exchange, what no one talks about, is the after. The emotional tax. The blurred lines between affection and obligation. The identity erosion that happens when every smile might mean rent. When every conversation might be a negotiation. And that's the cost no platform calculates. That's the currency universities never acknowledge. The girls who graduate without debt, but carry invisible scars. The ones who walk across the stage with a diploma and a silence no one can read. Because when a system rewards adaptation to exploitation, the real education isn't academic anymore. It's psychological. And what it teaches is devastatingly clear. You are alone in this. Your survival is yours to engineer. And if you figure out a way to win, even if it costs pieces of yourself, we will not intervene. So, who benefits? Everyone. Except her. She carries the burden. She learns the rules no syllabus teaches. She builds a life from transactions. And then she graduates into a world that still doesn't care how she got there. And that's the part no one ever admits. Because if they did, if they really looked at what this system produces, they'd see it for what it is. A business model disguised as opportunity. A silence disguised as protection. A survival strategy disguised as freedom. They call it tuition assistance. She calls it just for now. But ask yourself, what does it say about a country where education comes with this kind of cost? Just to be called success?